Welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I have with me the fabulous
Nancy Allspot Jackson.
And I'm Shannon, so that's why we're Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Can we just say that you better tune in next week because next week is the Halloween show.
Yes, and we're getting our costumes together.
And you know that Nancy brings it. I have to work hard.
I don't know about this year. Bringing it this year might not be the year. I'm a little fragile.
Well, I will say this, that we had many people write in with suggestions after we changed what we were going to be.
Right.
And we took part of somebody's suggestion that they wrote in. So
yes,
we tweaked it slightly, but for one of us. But so you'll have to tune in to see. It's a secret. We could tell you, but then we'd have to kill you.
We were going to be Donald and Hillary, but we just decided overdone, overkill, and we just can't do it.
Who needs it?
We can't go there.
So, but
it's
make sure you watch
already.
the debate today because and then it's the end of that. The debates are over after today.
Thank God. Do you know, I actually heard on the news that people are going in to see therapists and psychiatrists.
I believe it.
For election stress disorder. It's an actual syndrome, and I personally have been having nightmares about Donald Trump. So I just have to say it. I had a horrible nightmare the other night where he was lurking over me. And maybe because of what I've heard, on so many news stories, that it's just like in my head.
Well, I think, I didn't intend to go there, but for a lot of us, I identify myself as somebody who has been the victim of sexual assault.
As I have been.
Having all of this in the news all the time and having people online say things, and I don't care, because it's across so many things. It's really hurtful to people when people just automatically say, "Oh, well, if they didn't come forward
before."
Yeah. We could do a whole show on that.
We could do a whole show on this, and we are very opinionated on it, having experienced it, and
we are
myself
both,
with a powerful man who
both strong women who speak out and are opinionated. And I can say for myself, when this happened to me, I did not come forward.
I was paralyzed when it happened to me because it was a powerful man that no one would have believed he did it. So,
and I didn't come forward because the person said that they were going to have me killed.
Oh, good.
So,
okay. Well, on that note.
And it's funny how that can shut you right down.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So
anyway, we were planning on going there,
weren't we? No, we weren't, but we did. Okay, so
big news this week.
Autism Speaks is changing its mission for the first time in over 10 years. Rather than focusing on a cure, quote, for autism, the nonprofit says it will now look towards advancing research into causes and better therapies for autism spectrum disorders, as well as promote acceptance, advocacy, and support for individuals and families. And they have a quote from Stephen Mark Shore, who is on the autism spectrum, correct?
And he's been on our show, and we adore him. Dr. Shore is amazing.
Dr. Shore.
And he's on the board now of Autism Speaks.
And he said Autism Speaks was founded on the goal of curing autism. However, similar to many experiences of parents of children with autism, the organization grew to believe that autism is something to be worked with for promoting fulfilling and productive lives of people on the spectrum, rather than something that has to be done to.
And I just want to say that tomorrow on the show, we are having Alex Plank come on the show to talk about this because he's an adult who's on the spectrum, and we wanted to get his perspective on this and about what this means to him. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's a positive thing. And I will say that I had some grief about the fact that in doing this, we lost words like challenge and hardship and crisis that came out of the mission statement and in conjunction with autism. I know that those are words that are really hurtful to our self-advocates who are adults who are on the spectrum. I think that doesn't negate that for those of us who have our children regress into autism, that it is a hardship, it is a crisis, and that it's a big challenge, It
is a challenge.
And so I had some grief about losing those words, that there isn't a way that we can compromise, but it will continue to be a hardship for families. It will continue, I believe that it's a crisis when your child is diagnosed with autism, that is not the moment in which you go, woohoo! Later on, I think a lot of us come to a certain peace with it and learn to celebrate the differences that are there there, but that is not the story when your child is first being diagnosed.
No, and I just want to point out that we still live in a society, and our first guest is a filmmaker who's done a remarkable documentary on the challenges of living with ASD with one particular individual. And the movie is called Off the Rails. We're going to have the director here in a minute.
And it's not all about IQ.
No, no. And
the challenges can be there even with a high IQ.
If you want to see, we'll talk about this later, but it's a perfect example of some of the challenges.
Yes.
And it is a world, unfortunately, it is a world that is geared to neurotypical individuals. And when the pendulum swings to being geared to those on the spectrum, then it won't be the challenge it is. But until that point occurs, it is a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. In any case, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, our first guest today, Adam Irving, the director of this amazing documentary, Off the Rails, and then a little bit later on in the show, we have Marguerite Elisofan. I'm so afraid I'm slaughtering her name. But she's the author of My Picture Perfect Family. But first up, Adam Irving, right after these messages. Stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit, and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go. Yeah. So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we design the galleries. It's based on, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters. The storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life. An ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive. And finally, the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear. So it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the Storm Gallery. In one side of the gallery, we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. But we have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, when you first get on the ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the ark, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, the other fact of life on an ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. You know, people really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art making project that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center.
Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism-Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're gonna take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We are delighted to have our next guest in the studio, Adam Irving. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, Adam is the director, producer, and director of photographer for Off the Rails, which is a remarkable documentary that has received a lot of buzz and a lot of awards. Adam, welcome to the show. And I'm just going to ask you directly, tell us what this film is about.
It's about a man named Darius McCollum who is on the autism spectrum, and he has spent most of his life in maximum security prison for impersonating New York City transit workers and driving their vehicles as an imposter. And he's never hurt anyone, and he's never damaged any property, but this overwhelming love of transit that he has cost him his freedom. And the criminal justice system in New York has not found a way to channel his passions into anything legal, so they just warehouse him in a prison for a few years, let him out without rehabilitating him when he's on the inside. So when he gets out, he just does it again and again and again.
Yeah.
32 times he's been arrested for this.
Shocking.
Yeah.
But can we say, though, that the film is beautiful? It's beautiful. I mean, it's shot beautifully, but it's beautiful in terms of, it's kind of a love letter to Darius, and we get it all unfolds beautifully, and we get frustrated. I mean, I think anybody watching it, you get frustrated, and it's a little bit like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Where I found myself getting really hopeful that everything was going to be okay, and then it would take a sharp turn, and we go down another rabbit hole. And I don't want to give anything away, right? Because we want people to see the film.
Sure.
Where can they go to see the film? Let's start there.
They can see it in theaters in New York and Los Angeles. Here in LA, it'll be playing at Laemmle Music Hall November 4th to 10th, 5 times a day. And then in New York, later in November, from the 18th to the 24th, at the Metrograph Theater, 4 times a day. That's on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And then after that, it will be on home video, DVD, iTunes, etc.
You have all this memorized. I had it right here for you. So, but
Thank you.
He knows where his
know
film is
it.
playing.
Now,
I've done this before.
Let's get back a little bit to, and we're going to talk about some of the
Sure.
awards you've received in a little bit, and some very exciting developments about this in terms of Hollywood and a major star. But you told us about the synopsis of the film, and I just have to say, it's for an autism mom who has a son with a train obsession. This brought me to tears at so many times.
Yeah,
It was hard for me. It's disturbing, Adam. It's disturbing, and an example of how our system fails our individuals with ASD.
Yeah, I actually started off making this film as a lighter, quirkier kind of catch me if you can story, where you'd kind of be rooting for the criminal who's duping people and dressing up as other people, and as long as he doesn't hurt anyone, and it's all okay. And then as I got deeper into his story and started testing out early rough cuts of the film on audiences, I found that that kind of got old for them pretty soon, and what they were really drawn to is the critique of the criminal justice system, the tragedy of wasted talent, of a very passionate, brilliant man who has this one topic that he's so good at, and that's the very thing that keeps ruining his life. And so you end up, about a third or halfway into the film realizing, wow, this is really heavy, this is serious, this isn't just some fun, quirky train ride, but a deeper story that gets people angry.
It really does. And I want to say that, in his early childhood, he had such a loving family. I mean, the father was distant, but the mother loved this little boy with such a passion and so provided for him. And I mean, she talked about how, she did his homework, and she drove him to the best. He had the best grades, and, it looked so hopeful. And then there's a bullying incident that really drives him further into this obsession, right?
Yeah, his family was there. They were loving, and that really is one of the only sort of systems in Darius's life that didn't fail him. And one of the systems that did was the educational system. So Darius was at school one day when he was about 11 years old during one of the worst snowstorms in New York's history. And it was just him and one other student there because no one else could get to school. And this other student literally stabbed Darius in the back with a pair of scissors when he was doing a puzzle and the teacher wasn't looking. And it was very serious. He had a collapsed lung. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and he almost died. And he really was never the same after that, because when he'd come back to school, he had to sit in the back of the class because he didn't want anyone walking behind him. Right. He wouldn't get up to get his homework from the teacher's desk because he was afraid he would get stabbed again. And so he started making excuses to get out of class, and then he completely just started cutting school and, of course, hanging out in the subway system, because he not only loved the trains, but he found sanctuary in the tunnels and
in the employees
Yeah.
of the system who thought this little boy was remarkable. This young man was remarkable.
Although exploited him.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, it worked both ways because
Yes,
he found comfort in these adults who valued him as a person, who were no threat to him physically.
Right.
And who taught him about the trains to literally drive them. And that, of course, is what ended up turning things around, because they started asking him to drive their shifts and clean the locker room and sweep the token booth and not paying him for it.
Right.
And, when he got caught driving a bus at,
age
15 years old,
right? First time.
he wouldn't give any of their names. So he would go to jail and they would get paid. So it was really unfair that they used him.
Well, and again and again and again, we see the system fail him. There's a moment where somebody finally speaks the words about, wouldn't it have been great, wouldn't it still be great if they gave him a job? Because he is showing up doing better work than the people that they're actually paying. And the people in my household, when that was said, everybody went, yes! Like there was a roar that went up, or like, yes! I mean, this is the idea. And then you quickly hear all the reasons why. And I get it. I get that there are always legal issues, but it doesn't make sense what they're doing. They're putting everybody at risk by not giving him a job. I'm again and again and again, you see ways that this could have been saved, and yet they just keep doing things the way that they've been taught because of the legal system. Well, we must see it this way, and nobody can see past that.
Yeah.
He's brilliant, and he actually, I think one of the, I don't want to give things away, but one of the most disappointing parts of the story for me was when an event happens where there's a real emergency, and he steps up and becomes the reasonable, rational person taking care of people, to the point where he's even willing to give himself up in the moment. And give up the fact that he, is masquerading as somebody so that no one gets hurt. And he gets one of the biggest punishments for that, and they pin something on him that wasn't his responsibility. I was dying, he's so articulate. He sits at the table and says, dust the fingerprints on this button and you will see that I never touched it. And that was the one thing in the film that wasn't answered. Did they ever dust that? You don't tell us.
I'm not sure, but I did speak with the assistant DA on the case. He's briefly in the film.
Yeah.
And it was ultimately up to a grand jury, and they felt, given the evidence, given his past record, and given the fact that no one else could have caused this train to trip, it seemed like the most logical explanation is Darius caused an emergency so that he could rescue passengers and be the hero and get them to safety, when he in fact had caused the danger. And Darius to this day denies it, and he is so open about bragging about all his other impersonations. So it's odd that if he actually did do this, that he wouldn't just own up to it. So it's one of those things that no one will ever know. And it's a shame that he served a lot of time for it without really
half his
any
life
proof.
He's been in prison.
Yeah.
And he's there now.
Yeah, he's
and
there
you said
now.
you talked to him on the way in the parking lot.
Yeah, he calls me every week, if not more. Sometimes it can be a little much.
I've heard this before about this phenomenon of the filmmaker getting very close with the person, of course, like Truman Capote was, very close with the person in jail. I mean, I'm sure this can lead to sort of a dependent relationship, and I'm sure that you've learned a lot from this relationship about people on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, I did learn a lot. And one of the things I learned is that Darius is not kind of the typical Asperger's type. He makes pretty good eye contact. His sense of humor feels very sophisticated. And there's almost like this charm to him that is not typical of someone who you think of as more just kind of numbers, data, no emotion. And it revealed to me that there's just a lot of gray area. Not everyone is the same.
You've met one person with ASD. You've met one person with ASD.
Yeah, exactly.
So some exciting stuff coming up. But I do want to ask you this question. Answer it as best you can. What can be done about this situation?
Yeah.
Darius's individual situation, and then what this presents at large. That's a big question. But as the filmmaker, and putting all of these things out there, all of these problems, challenges, broken system, what do you think can be done, Adam?
Not a lot, unfortunately, on an individual level of, let's say, one of your viewers saying, I'm going to watch this movie, and then they see it and they say, what an injustice here, I want to do something. I mean, maybe I'm just jaded, but I feel it's very difficult for an individual working up against a huge system and a huge country with so many, corporate interests and taxpayers' interests to just make a phone call and say, oh, okay, we'll just pass this legislation and we'll set Darius free, give him the therapy he needs, we'll give him a job, and then he'll be a productive member of society, problem solved. It's just not that simple. I think it'll take years and years and years of lobbying and kind of using Darius as an example of the broken system so that other Dariuses can be helped. I think the fundamental problem here is that the criminal justice system puts people in boxes of guilty or innocent, crime, then punishment, and doesn't look at what to do when someone is incarcerated so that when they get out, they won't go back again.
Right.
And they don't have the money, the time, or the resources to do that because the prisons just keep getting more and more backed up. And someone like Darius, who knows what he's doing is wrong, but can't really help himself and has never hurt anyone or damaged any property, I don't think should just be sentenced to maximum security prison for years at a time. It's not helping anyone. So I would say, contact his lawyer, Sally Butler, and, ask her how you can help. And, write a letter to the legislators in the state of New York. And other than that, I would just say get as many people as you can to see Off the Rails so that eventually maybe the judge on Darius's case will see the film or the prosecutor and say, maybe they're not going to want to look like the bad guy after seeing that movie because they'll realize that they're the problem.
Well, there's
and
a
when I
bigger
ask you,
strength.
I'm sorry, when I asked you how things can change, you are part of that change, Adam, by making this film, and it reminds me of a time many, many years ago when I was working in television, and a guy who worked with me said, "My wife is going to be the subject of a movie, and she is going to be played by Julia Roberts." And I said, "Do you know how much your life is about to change?" And that guy was married to a woman named Erin Brockovich.
Yes.
And that movie changed a lot. And I think your film is going to change a lot. And there's some exciting news. Tell us about that.
Well,
involving Julia Roberts.
Yes, 16 years ago, she won the Academy Award for her performance playing Erin Brockovich. And there is going to be a Hollywood movie about Darius's life story, tentatively titled Train Man, that's set to come out next year, and Julia Roberts is slated to play Darius's lawyer. So it's going to be sort of a similar feisty legal defender kind of role for Julia Roberts.
For her.
And that film, to be honest, is going to be way bigger than mine. It's got millions of dollars behind it.
You started it?
Yes, I was the first. And I hope that the combination of Off the Rails and this Julia Roberts film will bring national attention to Darius's case and to other issues at play here. How do we deal with people on the spectrum that have really strong, passions or fixations, and how can they channel that into a productive career? Because a lot of these folks are really perfect for certain jobs, and they're not being recognized because their social skills might be, problematic for some people who are hiring.
Adam, I just want to say you've won so many awards. You won Best Documentary at Woods Hole Film Festival, Best Documentary at DocuTah Film Festival. The list goes on and on and on. There's even talk of Oscar nomination in the documentary category, which we hope to see happen. But it's really because of storytellers like you. And we want to commend you for that. Shannon and I are really, we are in awe of this film.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to watch the trailer, but we're going to do that as we say goodbye to you, because when we come back, we have another special guest. But thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
For being here, and thank you so much for picking this subject to make your film about, because it's really important.
Good luck to you, Adam.
Thank you so
Thanks so much.
So let's take a look at the trailer for Off the Rails.
My name is Darius McCollum. Over the years, I have operated trains in the New York City subway system, Metro North, New Jersey Transit, and yet I have never been an employee of any of these agencies.
Well, a Manhattan man is getting a free ride to prison.
And McCollum, said to have an encyclopedic knowledge of all things transit-related.
All of his crimes were victimless. He would safely make all of the stops, make the announcements.
He says, "I'm volunteering my time," as if he's a high schooler getting community service hours.
Now, he's been picked up 20 times for the same thing.
McCollum claims to have commandeered more than 100 buses for joyrides over the past 30 years.
McCollum has such a lengthy rap sheet of transit-related crimes, he has his own Wikipedia page.
Because I have Asperger's syndrome, I have trouble making friends. I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be picked on. I didn't want to have to be beaten up.
When he was young, when he was assaulted, he lost that sense of value as to who he is. Wearing a uniform creates a sense of value for Darius.
It was like I was married to the MTA.
He can't help it.
My son, he doesn't belong there because he doesn't hurt anybody.
While he was in jail, he never got any therapy.
There's a possibility that I can definitely die in jail.
He has been stuck in this revolving door for his whole entire life.
He's an individual that corrections doesn't know how to handle, doesn't want to handle, and doesn't have the money or the support to figure it out.
Welcome everybody to our 5K, 10K run and family festival.
So the Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival is a race that benefits military children with autism. So we help a lot of the families around the country whose parents serve in the military.
I'm an autism mom, but also a military wife, and I'm so excited to be here at Act Today's 6th annual run. I've never missed one. It's something that really helps this situation. Is fabulous because there's no other organization like it.
San Diego has some of the highest concentration of military in the country, if not the world, and a lot of my friends are military and are affected by autism disorder. And so for me to do some little thing to the people that protect our freedoms is important.
It's hard enough to parent a kiddo with autism. Can you imagine parenting a child when you move on average every 2 years, you have a parent member deployed or in training? Our kids don't like change. These kids are subject to constant change.
My name's Tom Leahy. I am president of One Hope Wine. We are the title sponsor of the 6th annual Act Today Family Festival. We have been the title sponsor every single year, which we're very proud of. We've worked with Act Today for 9 years, which we are also very proud of.
My name is Megan Martin. I'm a licensed and certified genetic counselor at Lineagen, and we provide genetic testing. Lineagen are strong supporters of all families with autism, but particularly families in the military.
Double stroller, so he should get double the amount of applause.
Hey, my name is Yarick Connor. I am in the United States Navy, stationed here at Navy Information Operations Command, San Diego. I am a first-class petty officer, and been here for 3 years so far. This event is important to me. Growing up in a family, my baby sister has Down syndrome, and just living through that and being 17 years older than she is, understand the importance of family. I understand the importance of how everybody is important to what we do here, not only in our country, but what we do throughout the world.
Go to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.org and help our military families impacted by autism.
5K, red bibs are the 10K. Here comes some more finishers.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Parent to parent, sometimes our kids will engage in certain behaviors that really seem random to us. We have no idea why they're doing it. It's really important to remember that all behaviors happen for a reason. And in fact, challenging behaviors happen for 4 reasons more often than any other reasons. The 4 reasons are attention. A lot of times our kids do things to get attention, and remember, negative attention counts. Another reason why our kids do things is to escape someone or something. A third thing is to gain access to someone or something. And the 4th reason is because it just feels good. So the next time your child is engaging in a behavior that seems random or strange or totally from outer space, stop and ask yourself which one of these 4 things might be causing it. Is it attention? Might it be to escape something? Is it to gain access to someone or something? Or is it that it just feels good? Knowing why the behavior happens helps us to deal with it. What is this ABA treatment I keep hearing everyone talk about?
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We were scheduled to have a wonderful guest that was going to be with us, and we're having some technical issues, so we're going to reschedule. But you know, there's always a blessing in these things because of the time change and the confusion with the time change. We were having Marguerite Ellefson, and we don't know whether it was Ellefson. And she's the author of My Picture Perfect Family. She was going to be on and talking about that with us. But also we were going to have her daughter, Samantha, on as well. And Samantha is on the spectrum. Marguerite had 2 children. She had twins. And in a very interesting twist of fate, it was her daughter who ended up being on the spectrum. And her daughter, Samantha, recently graduated from Pace University and is a very
Cum laude.
accomplished young woman, and is part of a theater company that we definitely want to talk.
Yeah.
And because of the time change, we weren't going to be able to have Samantha on anyway today.
So
we were going to
we'll
have her on. So we'll have them
her in
both
the
on
future,
another day.
yeah, because she,
and our apologies.
She, navigated this life before internet and support groups existed. So I don't know how she did it. I want to hear it.
She's a wonderful resource, and she also is available to consult with other families.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to have them both on. So we will reschedule that. And plus,
Yeah.
we've had so many questions
Yeah.
that have
So-
come in, and of course, my phone just chimped on me. But here we go. So I want to. This was a question that came in while we were talking to Evelyn Kung. Somebody said, "Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen and Evelyn. First of all, I want to thank you guys for this wonderful idea and want to express my admiration for your work." Oh, that's the one for the question, the grocery store, which we're saving for next week. This
Okay.
one. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen, West Virginia mom here. She's a regular that
Okay.
we love on the show. My daughter's preschool teacher expressed concerns with me about her OT provider. Evidently, she is COTA, C-O-T-A. So she's an
What does that stand
assistant,
for?
and I knew
Okay.
you were going to ask me, and I can't remember off the top
You
of
know
my head.
everything.
I don't, though. I don't remember things like that. It's alphabet land, but
Okay,
it's
certified something.
yeah,
Occupational
for
therapy,
occupational
yeah.
therapy
Association.
assistant,
Okay,
I think is what
okay.
it is. So she's an assistant who is still being supervised and trained. My daughter is expressing such severe anxiety while with this lady that she's chewing holes in her clothing, having meltdowns after going to OT, etc. I had a meeting with the COTA and the supervisor, and they said that for some reason, my daughter just doesn't like her. My daughter said she gets mad when I write my letters, and my daughter has a significant fine motor delay and severe sensory processing issues. Should I just request a new OT? Or I also have the option of going into her therapy session weekly and being present. I was wondering why she always has severe meltdowns, Thursdays and Fridays only. These are when she's having consistent self-injurious behavior meltdowns for at least an hour.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to go first, or you want me to put my input?
And
You go
she
first.
says, could this be related? And thank you, and we all love you. Do we want to go together at the same time? Because I have a feeling we're going to say that you go
Yeah.
first.
Well, first of all,
And I'll just nod my head.
Okay. The reaction your daughter is having to OT, this occupational therapist, is telling you something. She's communicating to you with these meltdowns. Something is terribly wrong here. And if she's indicated to you that that the OT gets mad when she doesn't do her letters. This is should not be occurring. This should be
Right.
a supportive situation. This should be helping you and giving her skills. Now, some frustration might occur in sessions when a child is being challenged to do better or to do more skills.
Yeah, or
But
a non-preferred skill.
a non-preferred skill. Of course, you're going to see
they
some
don't wanna do it.
reactions,
You ask
right,
me to
Shannon?
do taxes,
Yeah.
and I'm going to throw tantrums.
Right. And for example, my son Wyatt doesn't like it when a certain therapist is coming because he knows he's going to be demanded a lot during that session, but nothing to the degree of this kind of
self-injurious behavior
self-injurious.
right afterwards.
Yeah.
Big indicator.
So I would say, first of all, absolutely go sit in on sessions and see for yourself.
Yeah.
And then based on that, decide.
And
what do you think?
I agree. I think that that's the fair thing to do, but there's a little part of me that wants to say to all of us that you got to use your gut at some point, and if the behavior is so bad that I think that if it's really bad, it doesn't matter what the reason is. Let's not torture the child. If there's some inexplicable reason why she doesn't like this man, then let's not force her to. And if that's a card that you only use once in a while, then that's a card that you only use once in a while. You can't be doing that all the time and saying, well, they just don't get along with this therapist.
Yeah, and they get out of it because that can be also a behavior that happens to get out of therapy.
Absolutely.
But you seem to be indicating this only happens on the 2 days a week that she has this OT. So that tells me that your daughter is not reacting to other forms of therapy or education
And
or
look,
anything.
Here's the thing, it could be as simple. I know, sometimes our imaginations go to the worst possible thing. It could be as simple as this woman wears a perfume that just doesn't work well with her, but it doesn't matter. This is what I mean is that, and she could change the perfume now, but the child has this sense memory of it and it's not going to be saved. It's not going to be productive. And the question that we didn't answer was about behavior in a grocery store. And it's funny, as we started thinking about this, And talking about this, Jem always had this massive meltdown in one particular grocery store that we would go in, and at one point in the store, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I talk about this all the time. Later on, we had a BCBA come in and observe, and they said, oh, it's the point where the floor changes from this very slick surface that's shiny to a tiled floor. And does he have reactions around other tiled floor? And of course, in the moment, I said, no, I don't think so. But then I started thinking, oh, every time we go on a tiled floor, my child freaks out. So it isn't always something that's like, it may not even be that this woman is a horrible OT, right?
Right.
Or she could have easily made a simple, silly mistake in the beginning, but now the repair on it would be really, really hard.
Right.
So change her,
Yeah.
is my advice.
I agree.
Maybe go in and look once. But if it's self-injurious behavior, I feel like change her.
Yeah.
Because our kids have to learn, and they're not going to learn if the communication is that big. They're not going to learn. We got 8 minutes left. Okay, so here's one. Hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for this show. You probably have no idea how much you're helping us, and we appreciate that so much. And they said, hi, Dr. Doreen and Evelyn Kung. I'm a mom from India, and I have a 13-year-old on the spectrum. I use Skills Global and had a skills consultant for nearly 2 years, before 2 years, and it was extremely helpful with sleep and other issues. I am now having new anxiety about stimming issue going on during eating with my son and would like to have a professional help with this. Is it possible to have a consultant for this issue, and how do I get started with this? And thank you so much. And okay, so 2 things that I want to tell you guys about. First of all, on tomorrow's show, it's so timely that you wrote in about this. We are having on the program at 10:20, we have an expert who's going to be with us talking about something called card telehealth. I wish that I had one of those buttons that I could cue like the applause right there. Card telehealth. For those of you who, first of all, there is some support with Skills, and I'm going to give you the phone number for that, where you can call and get somebody to help you if you're just using Skills. But if you need even more help than that, then you can move over to Card Telehealth and use that in conjunction with Skills. So first of all, the phone number for Skills, 877-975-4559. And Robin Hogerhuis, who we've had on the show, is the person who you will get when you call there, or her assistant. And she's great to help with some issues, but if you feel that it goes beyond that, you're going to make sure that you're going to watch the show tomorrow at 10:20 when we're going to talk about card telehealth. For those of you all around the world who just need more help and support, they've got it set up. We're going to give specifics about that, but you can send videos, they can Skype with you, and it can be like a clinic. It's all legal now, even places in the United States where you don't, if you're in rural, that's a hard word for me to say, rural areas, you can be using card telehealth.
Okay.
So on the show tomorrow. Okay. Another person who said virtual hugs, Shannon, I love that. Thanks for staying strong for us, and just hearing Evelyn's positive voice and messages, good for the soul, and bless you both for all that you do. Okay, we talked a lot about card for adults,
right,
with Evelyn.
Right.
And somebody wrote in and said, do the adults seek out card themselves, and how do we teach our aging kids that to seek help when needed?
Okay.
And sometimes, it's a great question. Sometimes adults will ask for help and support. And sometimes they will ask for card help and support by name because they've gone to an event and they've met somebody from card, or they went to an open house. So sometimes they do. But I think that that is not the norm. I think that more often than not, it is somebody who knows the adult and who recommends that they come to card, and sometimes it's the family. But a lot of times it's a caseworker that is not the family, or somebody at a site that they're working says, hey, did you know? Because the problem is that families would ask for it, but for so long they got told, no, there's nothing. There's nothing available. So one of the things, if you're working with a CARD adult program, they have a whole program for teaching them to ask for help and support in a lot of different ways, so that it again generalizes to everything. Do they ever, I know at one point Jem had a lesson where he had to ask for help in all these different situations. Have they done that with Wyatt?
They've done some of that, yes.
Really, really helpful. I'm sorry, how much time do we have, Samantha?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay. Somebody said I was hilarious because I told them the story of something that happened with Jem earlier this year. Thank you so much for answering questions. Your funny story. I really love that autism and laughter can be in the same conversation.
Absolutely. If you're dead, if they aren't sometimes.
Oh my gosh!
Please, you should hear us laugh together.
You know, the conversations that we have about so many things, and that sometimes one of us will just say something,
and she'll say something sometimes, and I will just be on the floor. You can hear me through the walls.
You know, and honestly, because we have been through some poo in the last year, right?
Oh yeah.
Both the real and the figurative poo, and there are times when something will happen, and one of us will just say something, and just the sheer reality of it, the two of us will crack up and laugh hysterically and go, "Oh, this is
remember
horrifying."
to laugh. You know, they say remember to breathe. I think remember to laugh is one of the most important things, because I forget. I just get so down that rabbit hole of stress that, you know, I need that laughter.
And it's important to have people in your life that you
laugh,
can
right?
laugh,
Yeah.
and that will laugh with you,
right.
and give that to you. And that can't always, I mean, there are times that my husband and I laugh about things, but there are times when I need to laugh about him with you, right? and there are times when you need somebody that you can tell just the sheer horrible truth to, right?
Oh yeah.
And so make sure that you've got that in your life. And if you don't have it yet, there are support groups that are face-to-face support groups, but there are also online support groups. Make sure that you've got someone.
Don't isolate. Find somebody to laugh with and to cry with.
I'm a great isolator when things get really bad.
I am too, but I always turn to you.
Well, and you know, it's
you
interesting
see that panic look in my face. I come in, I look inside your office, and you're like,
well,
you need help.
But I don't think you realize, and I don't tell you enough, that like you called me on Monday because you were like, all right, what's going on? I haven't heard from you in days. What's going on?
You were dizzy with something at gym school in the morning, but she hadn't felt well over the weekend.
But she kind of, keeps me reeled in so that if I go to isolate, I couldn't, because she would be like, all right, what's going on? What's happening?
You do the same for me. So.
Absolutely. So, and that's a really important thing.
Us Lucys need our Ethels, and us Ethels need our Lucys.
You know, and it's amazing to me that we haven't done something that we could be arrested for yet. That's all I have to say, because I have a feeling
I almost got us arrested. Wasn't I gonna spill our blood on the Capitol steps once?
Whenever I say to, we've got 1 minute left, but whenever I say to Nancy, all right, we need to do something because we need to get some attention. Yes, she wanted me to climb the side of a building and spill our blood on the building. That was her first go-to, okay? And then the next one was that she wanted to go to the Capitol. I was like, let's get T-shirts made that have pictures of all these kids, and she was like, no, let's go topless. And she said, you can stand and hold the pictures of the kids, and I'll run around the Capitol until I drop and they have to call an ambulance. And that was plan B, you guys, right? And you know what we arrived at? We wrote CAN on our heads, which stood for something about insurance for autism, but I don't know why it was C. That escapes me now. That
Comprehensive Autism Insurance.
We can do it now. So we wrote blue letters on our forehead and had the news crews
and did that all
instead of spilling blood
and running around topless.
Yeah, that's all
I thought running around topless, but there's
plan
enough violence on
plan
television.
B, and plan C.